I got tea. It's hot. It's hot. Hi everyone, my name is Paige. I'm a lifestyle photographer based in Paris, France, and I just want to have a sit-down chat with you today about exposure differences between film photography and digital photography. So if that's something you're interested in, grab some tea and let's chat. So first of all, it is April 2020. If you're watching this in the future, welcome back to the pandemic. If you're watching this now, I hope that you are staying safe and that everyone that you love is safe and that you're inside, like I am, and we're getting through this. Not gonna put in any B-roll, so I hope that's okay. We're just gonna talk. This is a chat. The weird thing is that I'm holding this tea with my right hand, which is what I would do to drink the tea, but I keep wanting to talk with my right hand, and I always spill coffee or tea everywhere, and wine, when I do that. So we're living on the edge. First of all, shooting film is more similar to shooting RAW files in your digital camera than to shooting JPEG. So if you've already been shooting RAW, you're used to having a greater dynamic range to work with and to being able to make different choices with your camera, keeping that in mind. If you're used to JPEG shooting, you're going to get a lot more of a dynamic range with film, which is going to be really exciting for you. You also get a lot more of a dynamic range with RAW files. But yeah, film gives you a lot of leeway in terms of what information you can get out of your photos. Of course, if you're having it developed by somebody else, and if they're scanning it for you and sending them to you, you either work directly with the people scanning your film and developing it to kind of maintain that control and work with their artistic vision and yours, or you just trust them and then it's kind of like shooting JPEG again because they're making choices, informed choices ideally, and then you're just getting that final image and you can work with it a little bit less if they're sending you JPEGs or more if they're sending you something like TIFF files. So this is getting so technical. This was meant to be an easy tip and I'm like going into developing RAW files. Let's reel it back in. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you know how to work with RAW files and that you've done that before. If you don't and you'd like to learn, you'd like a video on that, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to make one because that's what I shoot a lot. But we're gonna assume for now that you know how RAW files work. And if you do, you're probably used to the fact that if you blow a highlight in your photo, you can't get it back. Right? So if you dramatically overexpose something, or if you have a photo with a lot of dynamic range in it, a lot of contrast, and you expose for the shadows, which means the shadows are the thing that are correctly exposed in your photo, you might blow out the highlights, so they might just be white. Depending on the camera that you use, you might see that in your histogram, you might see that in like a flashing warning when you look at the photo. You might see none of those things, it might just look white to you, whatever the case. When you bring that into Lightroom or Photoshop, you can't get that back. You can drag the exposure bar all the way down and there's just no data in those places. Again, if you want a more complete explanation of this, please let me know. Happy to do it. I'm skimming by a lot of things in that. Very long-winded, darling. Very, very long-winded. We're gonna get chocolate. We're gonna get that blood sugar, whew, and have more tea. Try this again. I got petit collier in my grocery order, which is very nice. It's like a little bit of home because I'm addicted to these in Paris, and they're twice as expensive in America, which is annoying, but they're delicious. So what this means, practically speaking, is if you're used to shooting digital, you are probably used to shooting within the limitations of what a digital camera can do. So if you've been doing this for a while, you probably have your own ways of dealing with this. Some people expose for the highlights, meaning they'll try to make the lightest part of their images correctly exposed, and they're okay with underexposing darker parts of their image because they know that with digital photography, you can get those parts back later in post. Some people will expose for other things and just be aware that if it's a scene with a lot of dynamic range, if the sky is really bright, for example, you might lose the sky, you might blow it out, it might just look white. People have different ways of dealing with that. Whatever it is that you decide to do, those are stylistic choices, and they're all valid. I use all of them at different times, although I do tend to be an expose for the highlights girl when in doubt. but you probably know that, you know, when in doubt, your highlights might be blown out. You can probably get more from the shadows. Film is actually the opposite. It's really, really good at preserving detail in the highlights. So you can look at a negative and think that it's totally overexposed and actually get a very usable image out of that. But on the flip side, it's not great at preserving detail in the shadows. There are ways of combating this as you get into more advanced film techniques like pushing and pulling. Let me know if you want a video on that. But if you're processing your film normally, you're gonna get a much cleaner looking image with a lot more detail if it's overexposed than underexposed. I find for myself that I have to constantly remind myself of this. Even though I learned on film at first, I shot digital and still shoot digital for so long that when I went back to film, my instinct was still to underexpose when in doubt. With film, you really should overexpose when in doubt, and trust that you'll have that information in the highlights. Even, you know, your 1 hour photo developing service that's just gonna run it through the machine, process your film for you, give you scans without looking at them, they will tend to try to get a correct exposure out of whatever film you give them when they scan. So you will still get those highlights back if you have overexposed. Of course, if you're working with a more boutique lab or a more professional lab that can take your input and know what you like in photos, and work with that, you can have even more control and get even more information. Or if you're scanning and developing your film yourself, the world is your oyster. But yeah, in general, overexposed for film, underexposed for digital. That was a brief explanation as to why. And if you want to learn more about this, please let me know. If you want to learn more about raw photography, more about film, the world is our oyster. We are here in quarantine. I have nothing but time. So let me know, and I hope that you are all doing well and staying safe. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. I hope that that was helpful. If you have any comments or questions about this, or if this led to more questions for you, which it may well have, please let me know in the comments below. As always, I will be there to answer you. Please like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe if you want more videos like this, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Yes, hello. I would like my voice back. Thank you. The tea is meant to be helping with that, but no! This is what happens when you've been alone for weeks. You just make stupid jokes to yourself and a camera, because why not? I was doing so well! Please do it! Tune in to my 12 million part series on what on earth we're all doing. Trying that again. Again! 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 Again!